somebody has been, by the name of Crow, has been playing Mortal Online 2 recently. I'm going to copy this and send it out to you guys. And they've played it for the past 6 weeks or so, and they've been completely immersed, and especially thought about how that relates back to Ashes. And if you're not familiar with the original, and this is not my knowledge, I'm just reading the post. MO2 is a vast open world, full loot PvP MMO with forced first-person perspective, action combat, and a frankly over-the-top use-based skill system that encourages specialization. Use-based means you increase skills as you use them. For the old school, this feels like the spiritual successor to Ultima Online. So what does this have to do with Ashes? They spent a lot of time with MO2, and it's really helped them clarify the middle ground approach that Steven and Intrepid in general is trying to take on PvX. And Crow says that there's always a tangible sense of danger in MO2, since death has the consequence of losing everything you're carrying, including your mount. So I'm just going to stop that there. There's more to read, plenty more. Their TLDR is MO2 clarifies some of Ash's design decisions in a surprisingly tangible way. And it's worth checking out as well, since we're between A1 and 2. But what are your thoughts? What are some other games that you feel like have kind of helped give perspective on PvX? Because this is also a very different kind of game.
Yeah. So I was actually watching some Mortal Online 2 content.
Okay.
I've never played it myself, but I was actually watching it a couple months ago. So I thought this was interesting that it popped up here.
Sorry. Don't mean to interrupt necessarily. Just know I'm going to step away. I'm still listening, but the AC here kicked on and it's loud. So I'm going to go turn it off.
We don't hear it, by the way.
But he hears it. That's what's important.
Okay. But you were watching some people play MO2.
I was watching people play MO2, and I actually had the knee-jerk reaction that the reason that MO2 isn't wildly popular is because it is extremely niche. Full loot PvP is rough. It's why Amazon Game Studios abandoned it for New World, right? Like they were not going to have the player count. And when we look at a game like Ashes, that all the systems and everything that they're trying to create is really contingent upon a healthy player count, like player economy driven and player driven storylines require a certain amount of players to be on the server. And I think people see partial loot from Ashes and they shy away from it. So they say, I could be out farming my herbs or my lumber or my hunting or whatever. And someone could come and they could, give themselves some corruption just to make myself have a bad time and take my gear. That is going to scare them away. So what steps is Intrepid taking to quell that kind of fear? Like it's not, and I think, everything Steven and Intrepid and Margaret have said on their streams has been, look, there's not going to be griefing. Like our system's going to be punishing enough where that just won't be a thing. But everyone inherently from their past experiences in things like PvP servers of World of Warcraft and other games that have open world PvP, Rust or whatever, right? They're going to get griefed. Like it's like if the penalty's not strong enough, so they don't have faith that the developer can make the penalty strong enough. But that was kind of my knee-jerk reaction, was like, we see this game, Mortal Online, that has some semblance to what Ashes is trying to do, where there could be PvP at any moment, right? And it just killed the player base because there's not enough people interested in that. That said, I don't know enough about Mortal Online to know if there's other variables that stopped it from becoming a healthy player base. But to me, and conversations I have within the gaming space, people don't generally want that. A lot of, especially MMO gamers, let's admit it, we're in a little bit of an aging generation in general. Like we want to come home from work and play our game and grind. Like this is generally the vibe behind most MMOs. So that was my concern. And it's not that I think Ashes isn't going to nail it. It's that the perception that Ashes isn't going to nail it, that's going to keep people away from the game. So we have to make some content videos, guys. That's what we got to make some YouTube content videos about how there's no griefing.
There's no griefing. As for me, I think it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. Like, I absolutely have hopes for the best, and I do know that there's going to be a lot of time for them to tune. I honestly, personally don't expect Alpha 2 to be any shorter than a year and a half, just for everything to get all the content out of there. And that's going to give plenty of time for people to test a lot of stuff and really work out a lot of kinks in like the corruption and whatnot. So I have faith it's not going to be the same as it is at the beginning of A2 by the time beta comes around, and even after beta there might be some tweaks to everything. So we'll see what happens, but I will say that every time I've approached or witnessed a game claiming like, hey, we're going to go back to old school hardcore this and that, it's never ended well. Because older games were hard and difficult. To be honest, think about it, because the average player base was not as skilled in them. That's one of the big reasons. It's just people didn't know these systems. They were all new. But nowadays it's really hard to create a 100% brand new game with a 100% brand new feel. It's all like recycling this and that and the other and pulling from so many different areas and creating something new out of all these spare parts. And then adding a few flares of their own. You always have to add something of your own to make it unique, like truly unique. But it's still the same carrots and all the different soups. Let's just put it that way. But when the carrots were brand new, people had a hard time with it. People didn't understand stuff. It was still a new concept, playing with so many, large numbers of people. And the Mortal Online full loot drop is just absolutely as hardcore as you can go. That's one of the reasons that I ended up immediately dipping out of the PvP realms in Ultima Online, because I honestly was not good enough. I didn't have time enough to get good enough to be able to avoid all of the griefers. There's going to be a corruption system in Ashes, but just like real life, jerks are going to find a way to be jerks. It's going to happen. If they're not going to be able to grief you just running around, they're probably going to try and find a way to just spam, slay, I don't know, caravans. Which doesn't get them corruption. But I mean, we'll like I said, we'll see though. These are just fears I have, more so than predictions that it's definitely going to be a downer or anything like that. These are just fears that I have, and I hope it doesn't turn out that way, and I hope things get tuned.
I think they know I think that the Intrepid team knows kind of what's at stake if they don't nail that balance right, because I think they know their audience pretty well by this point. It's been 7 years now. So I think they've got enough feedback. Like personally, I don't mind full loot drops in games that like Dark and Darker. I love Dark and Darker. I think it's a blast of a game. Like, I'm not a huge Tarkov player, but Dark and Darker fit that niche for me. I don't mind full loot drops in games where it's not like you've got this invested time in 3 or 4 year character. You've got your legendary sword, right, that you've been farming for. So I think I think that they've got a good beat on the MMO community, and adding that little bit of risk to the game without it feeling like it's bad. And that's always like the conundrum, right? Is like, how do you make it feel risky but not remove the fun? Because once the game becomes unfun, you lose your audience.
What is it? The rule of cool?
The rule of cool. I've never heard that, but I like it.
My thoughts are that I don't really have good thoughts on them. Not like I have a bad perspective on it. I just don't have a perspective on it because I haven't played a game like Ashes is going to be. And I know that with Grim mentioning PAX Day's alpha started today, I believe, and is going on for about 5 days, I think. And there's been a few people that have been popping on and playtesting it today. And it looks interesting. But I just don't really know much in terms of how PvX is gonna feel and how it's gonna like work out. But I do know that with the corruption system in place, it'll be very interesting to test. And that corruption system does make me want to try in PvP a little bit, or like not feel as worried about being attacked. But again, there's a lot of testing that's gonna have to go through it. But I think also some of these survival type of games do give you that very realistic of like, hey, there's consequences to dying, in the open world. I think one person I was watching, they accidentally died to a bunch of boars, and then their stuff was like stuck in the middle of this group of boars, and they were not able to go get their clothes and their rocks from them. So they were just kind of stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. You can, well, you can, then maybe they didn't know. You can, I've been playing Backstay today a little bit. It's really fun. You can summon your corpse. So if you're close enough to it, you can summon your corpse to you. So you can avoid. So like I died to a black bear that I should not have pulled. And, and like I got within a certain range and you hold down T and you summon your corpse to you.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, with PAX Day, didn't they? I mean, I haven't really kept up with it, but have they actually even implemented PvP? Is that the really funny part about that, Grim? Like they haven't really fully implemented PvP, so attacking back, quote unquote, doesn't really work well. Because that would be hilarious. I thought I heard at one point that they hadn't turned on PvP yet.
It's on, but in certain zones, yeah.
Yeah, no PvP. Okay.
So you have to go to a certain zone, and there's PvP now. That's part of this alpha too. Is combat. He
says, I think it gets cut off there, but in A1 before we got told to stop going corrupt, I tried it out a bit. By 10 people, it was harsh. I mostly killed gold spammers and shouty people.